guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I thought it would be fun to do a quick tutorial on alcohol marker blending. I am going to use 3 of the super cute colors from the Ohuhu Pastels. I swatched these a couple days ago and I've been playing around with them. I plan to actually color with them soon, but it got me thinking, maybe I should do a quick tutorial on how I blend alcohol markers. And I want to emphasize the words, how I do it. So everyone has their own coloring style, and I am kind of in that class that believe there's no right or wrong way. If it works for you and turns out the way you want, then you've done it right. So if you disagree with my method, totally fine. There's tons of different ways to blend alcohol markers, but just know this is my way of doing it. And I always have to throw those disclaimers out there because otherwise I'll get a comment saying that's not the correct way or whatever, but it's all opinion. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to show you 3 basic methods that I use. And before we even work on blending these, which are 3 beautiful pink pastels, first thing we have to talk about is paper. So, alcohol markers blend really well, but with the wrong paper, they do not. So, if you're using, like, say, a Hannah Lynn book, which I happen to have one right here, Hannah Lynn book, lovely pictures. I love using alcohol markers on all her books. However, the paper is Create Space paper. It's very thin, so everything bleeds through, but it is also extra absorbent. So like you go to color in and it just absorbs through, and you'll get a lot of bleeding and stuff coming out of the lines. So I do not suggest practicing your blending on Create Space or printer paper. So you can also use what is known as marker paper. But the actual marker paper is a translucent paper. It doesn't bleed, but it's not really what you want to use if you're a colorist. If you're an artist, you probably would use that a lot more. Now, as a colorist, blending paper is usually better, marker blending paper, but it is pricey as heck. So I don't buy it. They do have one from Spectrum Noir, and there's another one, can't think of the name, but I'll link it below. Those work really well, and if I'm doing something fancy schmancy with my markers, I will use those papers and print them out. Otherwise, I use what is a very soft white cardstock. It's very thick. It still bleeds through very slightly though on the other end, and it's smooth enough to keep the alcohol wet, because that's kind of the point. Your alcohol markers and what you put down need to stay wet on the surface so that you can keep manipulating them. If they soak in, you're not able to correct or layer the same way. And you'll notice this a lot. Like, you might use alcohol markers on a Create Space book and think, oh my god, I suck at these markers. No, it's probably the paper, to be honest. So I suggest, you can get the blending papers, which are great. If you want to do something fancy, definitely print on those. Or you can use this paper here. It's called it's Nina Astra White, Bright White cardstock. And I use this for a lot because it's a very smooth surface. It still keeps my ink wet enough so I can work with it. And it's, it works. All right, so now that we've talked about paper, please, if you're practicing this, at least have something close to the 3 that I suggested, and definitely not printer paper. Now, we're going to talk about the methods. There is a few. One is with the colorless blender. However, this blender, you actually put down first, and then your colors on top of it. I don't like this method because I don't like to put down this thing. Instead, I use my colorless blender to create highlights because it picks up ink, and I use it to push things in. So this would be a method, but we're not using that. So instead, I'm going to show you my 3. One is going straight dark to light. One is going light to dark, and the other is an overlapping method. So I use all three, it just depends on the situation. So example, here's the three colors we're going to use. Let's get the camera to focus. Oh, it'd help if they would all be the right direction. So light prawn are 120, sardonyx, if that's how you say it, are 110, and pale cherry pink are 080. I do suggest if you're new to alcohol markers that you pick colors as close as possible just for your sanity. Okay, so here we go. The dark to light. That means I am taking my darkest color and moving to my lightest color. Now, you want to work pretty quick with alcohol markers. Excuse my camera if it wants to just keep going in and out. So I suggest getting all the caps off. Don't worry, they're not going to evaporate on you instantly. But it just helps, especially if you're new to alcohol markers, it helps to have them ready to go. So dark to light. We would start with our darkest color and just kind of fade out there. Move to our second color, overlap. Mix them in a little. Go to our lightest color and see how you just kind of overlap. Same thing you would do with pencils, to be honest. Looks really ugly, doesn't it? Let it dry. Okay, so now let's talk about light to dark. I'm not very good at this method, but we're going to do it. So light to dark is a little different. With colored pencil, you would just be putting down, you know, your light, highlight, and then going around it. But in this case, we want to keep the paper wet. That's the point. So I would actually put down a full layer of my light, then move on to my medium color, then move over to my darker one, and then go back to my light and blend it all out. Now give it a minute. I know it's hideous right now. And like I said, I suck at this method. I've tried it a million times because this is the preferred method. I can't do it. I can get a good blend going dark to light. I can't do light to dark. Now, there is a way to do it a little easier with the light to dark method. This would involve doing, oh man, now I gotta think of my math. Okay, so you would start with your lightest layer, layer 1. Then you would add layer 2. Then you would go back to layer 1. Then you would add layer 3. Then you would go back to layer 2. Then you would go back to layer 1. So this is really good if you're doing like skin tones or you want to develop a ton of depth. This is where you would do that. So 1 is our lightest color. 2 is our medium tone, which is so orangey. So weird how it dries a totally different color. And then 3. All right. So, see that? Looks kind of crazy, I know. Let's go for it. So here is, we would do our 1. Then we would grab our 2. Then we would grab our 1 again to blend it out. Then we would grab our 3. Grab our 2 again. And then go back to our 1 and blend them all together. All right, let me put the lids on so I can explain. Now, this is wet. Alcohol markers look hideous when wet, because look, see, here's the color's dry, here's the color's wet. Can you see that difference? It's like, ew, pretty. All right. So this method gets you the best transition because you're basically you're putting down your base coat, you're going in with your medium tone, you're blending it together with your base coat. Now you're going to your darker tone, then you're blending that darker and medium tone together, and then you're blending it all with your lightest tone to make it seamless. And it's still wet, so let it evaporate. But as you can see up here, my dark to light blend looks good, and that's just because I'm a dark to light blender with pencils and markers. I don't know, just what I do. Now my light to dark looks okay, but you can totally see my transition lines because I just suck at this method. I really do. Now I'm waiting for this one to dry. You will notice the colors on this will be a lot more saturated, but that is only because of all the layers. Now this works a lot better with Copics than say your Ohuhus, but Ohuhu still works really well for this. It's just Copics are a lot better at layering upon layering. That's why they come out rather light and then they just build and build. Now I'll show you the colorless blender method just in case you were curious, but I do not like it. So you lay down your colorless blender first. Why this is a thing, I'll never know. I'm going dark to light because I suck it the other way. Oops. Overlapping. And overlapping. Blender all out. Looks ugly right now, doesn't it? But give it a minute. It's a lot of layers. But that's for the colorless blender. So you can put this down first and use that. One, it wets the paper so you have your alcohol to kind of play and push around with. But two, that's what it was intended for. Isn't that odd? Pencils on top, markers on the bottom. Just think of it that way. Now, with this colorless blender, you can actually like manipulate things and make them look cooler. So you can actually like pick up color. Say I want some dots in here. Once that dries, you'll see the dots. But say you had a line that you were trying to stay in, you can actually use this to push it back in, and you would basically just use light strokes to push it back in. Will it be 100% perfect? No, this isn't whiteout. It's not an eraser. However, you'll notice already that little bit that I had sticking out is now pushed back in. Now also, where I made dots on this, see how it left dots? So say you're coloring something and you want to leave like a little highlight area, you can actually use this to leave a highlight zone, because its sole purpose in life is to take away color if you use it on top. So see, it's going to slowly lift the color over here and I can have a highlight. Now if you were to use it to blend something on top, ew, because it takes away the color. That is this thing's sole job, to suck away the life of your colors. Pretty much. Just think of it that way. But yeah, so that's the colorless blender's uses. If you really want to use it as a blender, then lay it down first. See how beautiful that blends together? Do not use this bad boy on top. It won't look that pretty. You can use it to add a nice little highlight. You can add dots and little effects. But when it comes to overall blending, these are the ways you can blend your alcohol markers. And I know this is a super basic tutorial, and again, this is just the way I do it. There's other ways people do it, and a lot of professionals do the light to dark. I just can't do it. Everything I color with alcohol markers, I lay down my dark first, and when I'm doing skin tones, I do this method, the 1 2 1 3 2 1. And now this is where it gets confusing when you have like 5 colors because you're making a skin tone. So what would that be? That would be a 1 2 1 3 2 3. Oh man, see, I can't even do it. I'd have to think about it. Okay, 1 2 1 3 2. Oh, and then you would go 4 3, and then 4 5, and then 1. Yeah, I think that's how it goes. So basically you just build, 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 and then finish with your last color and blend it all together. Now, if your color range is super far apart, then you have to add in some extras. So instead it would be 3 2, and then 4 3 2, and then come back. Does that make sense? It gets really bad the more markers you add. Just stick to 3. Life is easy. So this was just my basic tutorial. I wanted to show you a cute color combo from these pastels by Ohuhu that you can make just from that set of 48, and just how I do this. And then I would love it if you share your little tricks and tips, if you have any ways you like to blend your alcohol markers. I will actually do another basic alcohol marker blending video later on. I just wanted to do one with these pastels because they are all popular right now and everyone is curious about them, so I wanted to show you how well they blend. But thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, keep coloring.